What's up, guys, and welcome back to Moan Inc. If you guys are new here, then hello. My name is Erica, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you joining me today on the channel. Because for today's video, as you can see from the title, I am going to be reviewing this lovely stack of books by Stephen Fry. But before we can get into that, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. And now that you have so kindly joined this nerdy community on this corner of the internet, let's get into the video. Stephen Fry's Greek mythology books. As you guys can see, we begin with Mythos, go into Heroes, and then have Troy. And I know that he is currently writing his next one, which is a retelling of the Odyssey. So obviously this is this is all reviewed before then, and I will be updating the channel when that comes out. The book underneath, for you guys who are unfamiliar, is just Mythos, but done with pictures. It's just illustrated, but it's the same book, just a little bit wider and a little bit prettier. I obviously had to get it, obviously. And what's even more wild about my illustrated Mythos is that I got it signed by Stephen Fry. Yes, I stood in front of him and I got a signature and I nearly cried. It was very embarrassing considering I'm 27 years old and I was standing in front of Stephen Fry, just like, I just really love your mythology retellings. But that's all we're gonna say about it. That's it. I was with Anna and with B, so B Fitzgerald and Anna Moradova. So they saw me absolutely freak out. And Jennifer Saint and Elodie Harper were downstairs. And so after I got this signed at Piccadilly, I ran down to them and I sobbed in front of them. So there were lots of people that saw me freak out. I was shaking. It was very embarrassing, but alas. Now you guys are in the, now everybody knows. So spoiler alert, I absolutely adore all of Stephen Fry's books, right? The first book, Mythos, or the illustrated version, this is just a retelling of the Greek myths that are more so scattered and isolated. So this really takes the structure, if you guys know, of Ovid's Metamorphoses, which is from the start of everything, right? So the start of the world, the start of the universe, which in ancient Greek mythology is chaos. And it goes through all of these individual stories that you would know, like Echo and Narcissus, Apollo and Daphne, and it just follows that line all the way down to kind of the end of Ovid's Metamorphoses. So we get myths like Arachne and Phaethon. So we get lots and lots of different myths throughout this book. It's actually the third one that I read. I read these in totally the wrong order, but this is the first one that he wrote. And I think that Mythos is a really, really good option for you guys that want to get into Greek mythology, but don't really know where to start. Just because I know that, you know, me and a lot of my other friends and contemporaries and co-workers, I guess you can call them, within this space, we all tell you guys to just pick up Ovid's Metamorphoses, right? Which is a Roman retelling of all of these Greek myths. But because they're all in one place, we always recommend do Ovid first and then go into the more niche, you know, Greek text and sort of come out the other side. But I think that Stephen Fry did a really good job of taking that structure and writing it for a modern audience and fusing it with more modern language without slang being thrown in there because slang will date things in a few years. But it's more modern language. It is much more lighthearted where it needs to be. It's much more playful. There's a lot more laugh out loud moments of this rather than in Ovid. And so I think that the adaptation for this audience, without taking away from the actual myths and changing the myths, I think was perfect. And I think it was brilliant. I think for you guys that go into bookshops and see Ovid's Metamorphoses and go, this would be a better place for you to start. Begin here, then go to Ovid, and you guys will certainly get that whole scope of Greek myth that does seem quite daunting when you're coming into the subject. Then we have Heroes, and Heroes is exactly what it sounds like. It retells the stories of these really important Greek heroes from Greek myth. Okay, so all of these characters that you will see their names pop up time and time again, characters like Theseus, Perseus, Orpheus, and even characters that you may not have heard of, like Bellerophon, for example. I feel like he is really punished for his name. Like, no one knows who Bellerophon is. He's the guy that actually had Pegasus, not Heracles, like the Disney film would like you to believe. It was Bellerophon's thing. People would probably love that story, but I have a theory. It's because his name is so rough. There is no evidence to suggest that. That is just a personal opinion. But anyways. So there's Bellerophon as well as Atalanta, who is a female hero. And I would say the difference between Mythos and Heroes is that Mythos is the isolated stories that all kind of fit together in a puzzle of like how we ended up kind of getting, not here in the modern sense, but here in the ancient sense, which is what they were looking back to, this mythological history that they had. Whereas Heroes is trying to tell you these encompassing stories of the one character. So it's Theseus from start to finish, Heracles from start to finish, Perseus from start to finish, and telling these full narratives, which is different to Mythos. Then we get to Troy, which I think is probably the hardest to write of the bunch. I don't know that. I didn't ask Stephen Fry when I met him because I was just so panicked. It's so embarrassing. But as a classicist, reading Troy, I don't think I've been more impressed with anybody's work than this particular book. Because not only is Stephen Fry trying to tell you the story of the Trojan War, which is from the Iliad, mostly, right? That's where we get that window into the Trojan War. But he tries to create that background story as well. And when I say create, I just mean that he's piecing all of these random references together that we know were part of the individual characters' backstory or their parentage or their lineage, right? So there's a lot going on in this book, right? We go from, okay, here's Achilles, to who is Achilles' dad, to who is Achilles' mother, to what happened at their wedding that would help you understand this moment. All these things that we know, which is why at the start of all of my summary playlists, I always have a context thing. So it's like, well, here are all these references that we know that you should probably know, but you haven't read all of this, and that's okay because I have. Stephen Fry took all of those references to make the story of Troy not just the Iliad, but to make it this all-encompassing narrative of all of this stuff and all of these people did this great thing, and then they had kids, and those kids went to the Trojan War. It was so complicated, but done so effortlessly that it still is one of those books that when people ask me if they want to read the Iliad, you know, what did they do? Like, where do they go? What retellings are the best? I always point them to Troy. I always say, start there. And then you can go into all of these other like Jennifer Saint's retellings or whoever it is. You can then expand after this one. Now, a through thread about this series that you guys should know is that something that Stephen Fry does is that he will constantly make footnotes of the sources that he chooses. And this is an element of his work that I adore. So for example, in Mythos, he might use Ovid's Metamorphoses with regards to one storyline, but then he'll put a footnote saying, well, there is an alternate version of this in Hesiod's Theogony. So you guys can go and check that out. Here's the section where that is. Or vice versa. Sometimes he'll go with Hesiod's version of a myth and he'll write in the footnotes, Ovid does this, but he does it in this way. You can go find it in this book. And that's something that I really, really like because the idea of using all of these as a jumping off point to then push people into being a classicist or at least a classics enthusiast is the ultimate goal. I mean, it's the ultimate goal of this channel. That's what I try and get you guys to do all the time. It's why I'll give you only a certain amount of information when it comes to my summaries and then tell you guys to go and read the text because it's the most important part of all of this. Like, it's great that you guys are reading this, but it's more important that you use this to then go and read something else. And I know for a fact that so many people have done exactly that. Like, I know so many people who have read Troy and then wanted to read the Iliad. I've gotten so many comments of people on my videos saying, oh, I only found this channel because I read Mythos, and that made me want to know more, and so now I'm here. Not only my channel, but people go on to find, you know, my lovely friends' podcast, whether it be Liv's Let's Talk About Myths Baby or Jen and Jenny's Ancient History Fangirl. You know, people have used these books as a jumping off point to go and explore the ancient world. And that ultimately is why I will always champion these books, because I know that they are inspiring people to go and read more. Not only that, but they're also just inspiring people to read the series, which I think is really fantastic, because not only are the footnotes, you know, here are the other ancient sources that discuss this, or the alternate mythologies, but we're going to go with this one, whatever it is. He will also then, for example, in Heroes and in Troy, will reference something and then will say, oh, don't worry, if you want that story, go back and read Mythos. Oh, don't worry, if you need to know this detail, it's on this page of Heroes. Which is so great, because it's not only encouraging people to read the book that they're currently reading, but also then read the rest of his books. And then through that, jumping off into the ancient books. And I genuinely don't have nicer things to say about any series than the things that I have to say about Stephen Fry's whole Greek mythology retold series. Because I think that it really hits that mission of trying to engage more people with the classics. And I think it's done it in such an effective and brilliant way that it's allowed channels like mine to really pop off and to really flourish, as well as other podcasts and other Instagram pages or whatever it is, that all of us are kind of getting more recognition because of these books. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that and not to highlight that it's because of Stephen Fry that this has kind of become so trendy on a different level to just retellings. Obviously, retellings do an amazing job, but to have somebody as big as Stephen Fry, as famous as Stephen Fry, saying, hey, this stuff is really interesting and you guys should definitely go and read it. I mean, you can only thank him so much, really. Like, you can only say so much without coming across as a fangirl, which I already do because I nearly cried in front of him, so there's that. So I would highly, highly recommend all of these for you guys that want to dip your toes into various parts of Greek mythology. Maybe you guys have seen my summaries and they've been a little bit intimidating. I know that some of them come across as being very long. I know that the series seem really long, the books seem really serious, but obviously something that I say in all my videos is that they're really not. Like, you guys can really just enjoy the story as a story. But I think if those are a little bit too intimidating and you're not quite there yet, definitely pick up these books because these will be really, really good to prepare you for that next step. And I know that the Odyssey retelling is going to do the same thing. And so obviously you guys can find all of the links to these books in the description below, including Mythos illustrated as well, so that it's super easy for you guys to just pick them up right from watching this video. If you guys have any other input, any other reviews, so to speak, of the Stephen Fry series, then do let me know in the comments below. I'd be super intrigued to see what you guys think of this, how it read to you, if it was easy to follow. If it's everything that I said it was, let me know in the comments below because I kind of tend to have blinders up. So I'd be super interested to see your opinion and to hear your thoughts. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video, and we'll be seeing you next time with more here on the channel. So I'll see you guys then.